Spanish, and infinity was also the imperative.
Okay.
Reunited from you.
Yes.
With a hard trill for starters.
I can do that.
Reunited.
Yeah.
Such a voice.
At least it was you and not somebody good to see you. Nice to see you.
Check.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Families belong together. All right. So, my name is Dan Cole. I teach English as a second language here in Macon County, elementary level. We've got a few people speaking today. We've got Enrique Gomez. Enrique! All right. He is the president of the Jackson County NAACP. He's going to be speaking on the latest executive order and what that does and does not do. We've got Michael Waters right here in purple. He is the president of Centro Comunitario of Macon County, and he will be speaking on what's happening with some of our folks here, even in Macon County, as well as other things. We've also got some clergy who are going to come up and speak in a bit, and I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, unfortunately the climate is such that the Immigration Service, under the President's administration, is targeting people who speak out. So I think we've had other events in the past, and we've had lots of Latinos, but unfortunately that has changed because the stakes are just too high, because families that are working hard in Highlands, in Franklin, around the county, in restaurants, picking our vegetables, working in the hotels, doing ground maintenance. I can tell you all of those country clubs up in the Highlands rely on those folks. And they're here, many families with their children who we teach, and we love them, and they're awesome, and the families are just doing what anybody else would do, what my ancestors did, to come for a better life. And in fact, some of my ancestors had names like Salvador and Maria, and they were derisively called WAPs, without papers. And yet, my grandfather, Joseph Porto, he was first generation born in America, went to American public schools, and eventually went on to work at Miller Electric, making those amazing welders, and worked in a plant in World War II, making airplanes for the war effort, and it even went on to become the county executive of the Republican Party in Outagamie County in Wisconsin. So there's all of our experiences as children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants. And the folks we're talking about specifically today are asylum seekers. These are people who left mostly Central America, who left Guatemala or El Salvador or Honduras, which have terrible situations, human rights being violated almost systematically, and gang violence, which is why so many of the young people are leaving, because otherwise they will be forced upon threat of death to become part of these violent gangs. So they're coming here for a fresh start, for a chance, and they are coming, and they are going to the border, to our border people, and turning themselves in. These are not folks who are coming, they're turning themselves in as asylum seekers. These are people who are seeking asylum. And due process of the United States in the past and of the world is to hear their situations by the federal government. And unfortunately, we've hearing things out of Washington, D.C., saying that they should all just be deported without any hearings, without any due process. This is un-American. This cannot stand. And the worst part is the separating of the children. That is immoral. That is unconscionable. This is traumatizing these children, these innocent children, for their parents' crime. It's not even a crime for coming to America for a better life to survive. So, anyway, I didn't mean to go off, but I'll get back on track here. And I'd like to thank Bobby Coggins. She organized this event. Bonnie, where are you? Bonnie! Where's Bonnie? Hey, there's Bonnie. You want to say a few words?
No.
Okay.
Down here among these wonderful people who are going to support this cause.
Awesome. Thank you, Bonnie. All right. Okay. I've got a few things, and I'm going to turn it over to our speakers. First of all, a fellow church member came up to me with a sign that says, "Todos somos hijos de Dios." All right. We are all children of God. And I thought, yes, thank you. Thank you. Y si necesitamos reunir a las familias. We need to reunite our families. Okay, so, all right, here's a bit of an overview. In April this year, President Trump began his zero-tolerance policy ordering ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and Health and Human Services, HHS, to separate asylum-seeking children from their parents. These are families who voluntarily turn themselves in at the border, seeking asylum from violence and terror in their home countries. President Obama's policy was to release adult asylum seekers with electronic ankle bracelets within the U.S. along with their children until their legal proceedings were finalized. This program cost $36 a day for those ankle bracelets. Trump's policy at one facility in Texas for children cost $775 for one day and is inhumane and immoral. Under great pressure from the American people, President Trump finally issued an executive order a week or so ago ending future family separations. But over 2,000 children are still held at 17 different detention centers around the United States. Also, now asylum-seeking families will be held indefinitely, like terrorists. This is an abomination of freedom and justice. This is why we are joining Families Belong Together, a national day of protest against this inhumane and immoral separation and treatment. Currently, the federal agencies consider children who they separated from their parents as unaccompanied minors or abandoned by their parents. According to federal law, these children are put in foster care and after 23 months are put up for adoption by strangers. This is unbelievable. Vulnerable victims of violence come to America for freedom from tyranny, and their children are taken away from them, in some cases forever. This is unconscionable. This government, under Trump, has become tyrannical in the most inhumane way. How do we feel if we can't find our child in a store for a few minutes? Imagine how parents feel when their children are taken away by armed government officials. This policy creates hatred toward America, which is the opposite of what we need. President Trump's abhorrent policy of separating children from the parents is being done in our name, using our tax dollars. If we stay silent, then we consent to this grave injustice. Thank you for coming and saying enough. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Janet Green.
All right, but I don't know where from. Drop this down.
Thank you, Dan.
Get right in there, bite.
My name is Janet Green. I serve 2 United Methodist churches here in Franklin, and I come today to talk a little bit about Jeff Sessions' quote from the scripture. That's where I have a little bit of training to talk about. He quoted from Romans 13, "Every person should place themselves under the authority of the government. There isn't any authority unless it comes from God, and the authorities that are there have been put in place by God." That was the quote he had. It's a verse that has been trotted out many times in history. The British loyalists brought it out to counter the American Revolution. It was used by slaveholders to support slavery. He is a United Methodist person, and but I don't think he's been to a good Bible class in a long time. Because if he had, he would know that you can't pull one sentence out of the scripture. You could prove anything by pulling one scripture out. I was told a story one time about a pastor who didn't like women wearing their hair up on top of their heads, and he preached a sermon on top not come down, and he took it from the scripture that said, those on the rooftop not come down. You can even take phrases out to prove whatever you want. But the focus of Romans 12 and 13 chapters is not about government doing whatever it wants under the cover of God's blessing. The focus of these chapters in Romans is about denouncing and overcoming evil and doing good. It's about welcoming strangers. It's about loving our neighbors and laying aside immoral actions. There's another verse, several of them, from Matthew. I saw one walking around here. If you do this to the least of these, you do it unto me. There's one. And there's another one. Jesus said, allow the children to come unto me. Don't forbid them, because the kingdom of heaven belongs to people like these children. Long before there were tribes or nations, long before there were borders or political parties, God created the family. In Matthew, Jesus was addressing the Roman government who allowed exploitation and dehumanization of children, and that is abuse and dehumanizing exploitation is still going on today. Jeff Sessions misused the scripture by using it to promote an agenda that is the complete opposite of the good news of the God of the Bible. The welcome of strangers and immigrants is mandated throughout Scripture. Hear these words from Zechariah. Make just and faithful decisions. Show kindness and compassion to each other. Don't oppress the widow, the orphan, the stranger, the poor. Don't plan evil. And from Proverbs, speak out on behalf of the voiceless and for the rights of all who are vulnerable. Speak out in order to judge with righteousness and defend the needy and the poor. And from Jeremiah, the Lord proclaims, do what is just and right. Rescue the oppressed from the power of the oppressor. Don't exploit or mistreat the refugee, the orphan, and the widow. Don't spill the blood of the innocent. And in Leviticus we are told, when immigrants live in your land with you, you must not cheat them. Any immigrant who lives with you must be treated as if they were one of your citizens. You must love them as yourself, because you were immigrants in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. We're called as Christians to practice hospitality to the immigrant and the stranger, to promote human dignity and worth, and to protect children, the immigrant, the bullied, the abused, the disadvantaged, the minority, wherever they are. They are not pawns in a political power game. They are children of God. We come today to shout our disapproval, but we must move from ranting to revival, from fear to courage that works with action. We begin by finding our own moral compass, and the best way to do that is in community. I would encourage you to find a community of faith or an advocacy group that you can be part of to share and grow and learn and find out what you can do, because we work best together and we don't give up hope. Author activist Adrienne Barry Brown says, things are not getting worse, they are getting uncovered. We must hold each other tight and continue to pull back the veil. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. quoted the Unitarian minister Theodore Parker, who said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And he went on to say, justice will not fail. Though wickedness appears strong and has on its side the armies and thrones of power, the riches and the glory of the world, and even though the poor crouch down in despair, justice will not fail and perish from the world, nor will what is wrong and contrary to God's real law and justice continually endure. This is the good news that I bear to my churches, and I would bear to you, that light will overcome the darkness, that God will bring life out of death, that God accomplishes this as we do the work of justice in this world. Brothers and sisters, trust in God and continue to hope and work. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a message from our mayor, Bob Scott, which he wasn't able to make it today, but I've been asked to read it, so I shall attempt to find it. Okay, here we go. Quote, sorry I am out of town. This is from our mayor, Bob Scott. But I am proud of what is happening today. We need more practicing of the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. And I sincerely thank you for that. At no time in our nation's history, or at least in my time, has the First Amendment needed dusting off to remind us why and how our nation was formed. And what we the people truly means. It is not we certain people, it is all of us. The issue, your being here today, is so important to show that there is opposition to the cruel treatment of children who have been separated from their parents, and the treatment of their parents. Again, sorry I am away, but rest assured I am thinking of you and how important that we let people know we are concerned. We are concerned. From Bob Scott. All right, before our next announcer, I just want to make a couple announcements. A couple things. If you wish to, well, we've got a petition over at the Blue Canopy, a petition asking that the immigrant families are reunited. So there's a petition over there. There's also underneath that sheet, there are some sheets if you want to get information about future events from Centro Comunitario of Macon County. One of those events is a very fun event on Friday, September 14th in this very location. 6 p.m. it will be our annual Hispanic Heritage Month event with music and Mexican dancing and food and bouncy houses. Anyway, something aside, but hopefully the community will be out for that. It's totally non-political. It's just a family celebration open to everyone. So please come to that. Also, we put together 3 postcards, and we will pay the shipping. And we've got, on the front they say, reunite immigrant families with compassion and justice now. Please add your own message below that. On the flip side, above the congressperson's address, name and address, that's where we're going to put the stamp there later today. On the left-hand side, though, to the left of the address, if you'd like to put another note, but especially let them know where you're from so they know that you are part of their constituents. So we've got the yellow one going to Senator Richard Burr in Asheville, the hot pink going to Mark Meadows in Hendersonville, and for Tom Tillis we've got the green going to Charlotte. So we've got well over 100 of each, so please at some point go over there and fill those in. And again, just another way to let our representatives represent us. Okay, without further ado, let me turn this over to Enrique Gomez, President of the Jackson County NAACP.
Enrique!
Good morning, Franklin!
Good morning!
Is the moral resistance alive in these mountains?
Yes!
People say that for this issue, the suffering of children, we should not care. Do you care? Yes! Do you care? Yes! Do you care? Yes! Today, there are over 700 events that are observing and demonstrating our rage against this policy of family separation. And we brought this event here to Franklin. Thank you, Franklin. Thank you, Centro Comunitario. Thank you, everybody that went this procession. Thank you. Tonight, there is a girl younger than 5 in one of the over 100 child detention centers spread over 17 states. Weeks ago, she was forcibly separated from her family from Guatemala, who crossed the border seeking protection from violence. She does not speak English. She does not speak Spanish. She speaks the Maya language of Mom. She does not know the name of her parents. She will cry out, "Manpa, Chupa," but nobody will understand what she's saying. Mommy, Daddy, nobody would understand her. Nobody will comfort her. In another shelter in another state, a young boy from the southern Mexican state of Oaxaca who does not speak Spanish, who does not speak English, will cry out, "Shtad, Shnan." Nobody will understand him. Nobody will comfort him. Another shelter, an Ishil child will cry out, "Tat, Nan." Nobody will understand her. Nobody will comfort her. Another shelter, a child will cry in the Kanhoba language, "Mame, Chute." Nobody will understand him. Nobody will comfort him. Another shelter, a child will cry in Achi, "Kao, Chu." Nobody will understand her. Nobody will comfort her. And I don't know the name of these children. Maybe nobody except their parents held in yet another state will know their names. We know these children exist because a report of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement states that Quiche, Mam, Akchi, Chi, Ishil, Aguacatec, Jacaltec, and Hancobal, Maya languages spoken in what is currently Guatemala and southern Mexico, languages as different as each other as Swedish and Dutch are of English, were represented within the ICE family residential facilities. In Latin America, there are at least 560 indigenous languages spoken by 780 different tribal and ethnic groups. And when this administration forcibly separated these children from their parents, it instituted no effective mechanism to track and unite them, because it had not the will to do so. These families come to this country seeking refuge because of the abuse, torture, and systematic killing carried out by government officials, military operatives, drug cartels, who sometimes are one and the same people. And they come here because powerful, unaccountable people have decided that these people have no right to exist anywhere. And we are told that we don't care. Do you care?
Yes!
Do you care?
Yes!
Do you care?
Yes!
Homeland Security reports that there were 2,342 children were separated at the border from 2,206 adults from May 5th to June 9th. For those who speak these indigenous languages, ICE does not have enough speakers to support and communicate with children or their parents. And if you cannot speak with the parents, you cannot establish what they take care of, so the children will be probably permanently removed unless we do something about it. Last week, the AP reported the existence of at least 3 tender-age shelters in Combs and Raymondville and Brownsville, Texas. We have internment centers for toddlers and babies, and we are told that we don't care. Do you care?
We care!
Do you care?
We care!
Do you care?
We care!
My brother-in-law has worked as a case manager for the Office of Refugee Resettlement for unaccompanied minors in South Texas. He told me of being with a child no older than 5 who had been detained in one such center and who was talking over the phone with one such relative. Estoy solito. No tengo nadie que me cuide. Estoy solito. He was crying over the phone. I am alone. I have no one to take care of me. I am alone. No child anywhere should have the experience of being alone, removed from their caretakers who they have bonded with. No child as young as this must be forced to develop an understanding that they are truly alone. No child should have had to explain in simple words to the adults around them so that they understand that they are alone and that they don't have someone to take care of it. And we are told that we don't care. Do you care?
Yes!
Do you care?
Yes!
Do you care?
Yes!
And we have over 70 years of scientific studies to understand what happens to a child under forced extended separation from their caregivers. Because we did this experiment in a massive scale. And we called that experiment World War II, where infants and children from all over Europe were removed from their parents to the countryside so that they would be protected from bombing. And it's understandably so. But we have this most robust conclusion from the field of psychology. When you separate parents from children, what you do is basically you accelerate the development of those systems that protect the brain and the rest of the body from stressors. But this development comes at a terrible cost from the trauma of parental deprivation. At terrible price, gene expression is altered, and the way that the brain is built and connected to permanently and irrecoverably altered. Your visceral response at the sound of a child, an infant that is crying in pain and is not being attended to, is your body's recognition that somebody's brain is permanently deformed and altered. This is your response. That's why we are here. That's why we care. Do you care?
Yes!
Do you care?
Yes!
Do you care?
Yes!
And parents are there to insulate the children from the stresses of their brains as they mature. It would have been far more humane to keep the World War II children in the war zone with their parents at the risk of dying from bombing than to inflict a lifetime of subsequent suffering from childhood deprivation. And children removed from their parents in the critical stage of brain development grow into adults who are hypersensitive to threat. They will be adults prone to anxiety disorders and depression and suicidal ideation, as well as diabetes and obesity and cardiovascular disease and stroke and inflammatory conditions like arthritis. If this sounds familiar, it's because we did this already in this country to millions of slaves and their children. And we did this in these mountains to the Cherokee community. We did it to those children who were forced to be separated from their parents by being sent to board school so that they will forget to speak Cherokee, and the multi-generation legacy of this orchestrated psychological violence lives in this community at this moment today. And we are told that we don't care. Do you care?
Yes!
Do you care?
Yes!
Do you care?
Yes!
Why is this happening? The explanations change depending on the day and what the administration is speaking for. Okay, even the president, who had argued for days earlier that he was enforcing a policy passed by a previous Congress that he could not change, an objective, demonstrable lie. The president then contradicted himself, again signing a directive keeping families together, but makes no provision to reunite families already separated. And we are told that we don't care. Do you care?
Yes!
Do you care?
Yes!
Do you care?
Yes!
All arguments that we have heard, from protecting the country from terrorist and drug cartels to blaming the parents for the consequences of policies that this administration arbitrarily enacted, are internally consistent, fly in the face of verifiable facts and legal reasoning. It is at odds with the fundamental moral core of both conservatives and liberals in this country. It is happening despite the pleas of religious leaders of every tradition. So we have to ask again, why is this happening? And the best explanation that I can come up with, the best explanation I can find cannot be found in any tweet or public statement from any official or pundit on the media. It can be found just as easily by you as it is for me. But I don't recommend you do. It is on forums such as Reddit and 4chan, used by tens of thousands of men daily. It is there. in the places frequented by white nationalists and violent misogynists who hide in their anonymity to cheer each other's fantasies of starting a race war or going on mass shooting rampages in schools and churches and concerts and newspaper buildings. It is there where people make Holocaust just and air genocide plans. It is there where people plan mass violence attacks on women. It is there where people call on the killing of journalists. It is there in the spaces of virulent racists, incels, proud boys, and those who trade in child pornography. It is there where you find the most internally consistent rationale for this policy. And it is in these places. It has been like Christmas in June because the president delivered. He delivered in the sights and sounds of brown children wailing in tortured misery. It is in their anonymous posts that's plainly obvious that it is a source of pleasure and delight for these men to see and listen to the agony of children. Let's call this what this really is: state-directed and choreographed torture child pornography.
Yes.
And we are told that we don't care. Do we care?
Yes.
Do we care?
Yes.
Do we care?
Yes.
It is a pornography of power for the pleasure of deprived set of men, small in number, but the only constituency that the president gives unwavering attention to, the alt-right. The only segment the president will not condemn or distance himself from. It is a pornography that depicts a wishful reality of a world separated into those who dominate and those who are dominated. Those who have the privilege to define reality and stand above the law and accountability. Those who exist only to be abused and exploited for the pleasure of a few. But like all pornography, it is not reality. Because I am here, standing here with you, and I care. Do you care?
Yes.
Do you care?
Yes.
Do you care?
Yes.
Yes, we care, because we are not a country where any person can stand above the law. We are a country of civil rights and constitutional protections, of checks and balances, and a system of accountability. We are a nation of shared moral values and ethical standards that protect the most vulnerable among us. And we as a people denounce this family separation policy. We as a people demand the resignation of all officials that crafted it. We as a people demand We as a people demand the closure of child internment camps. We as a people demand limited family detentions and the right for asylum seekers to come before a judge and make their case. We demand that the 15th Amendment protections for all people in our land be respected and observed. And even yesterday, the administration was arguing that, yes, we're going to bring this family together, but we have the right to hold these families in indefinite detention. And I'm saying no! Because one important thing, we have a constitution that has this protection for reasonable seizure, for your right to speak on your behalf in a court, to speak, to be challenged, to make your case for asylum. These are all essential. And we demand that this attention obey the court order issued this past Tuesday by U.S. District Judge Dana Sobra in San Diego, who issued a nationwide injunction on future family separations. We demand that the government provide phone contacts between parents and their children immediately. We demand that the government reunite separated families immediately. We demand the end of indefinite detentions for reunited families. And we will not have internment camps in this country ever again. And there should not exist in this land an extra constitutional force that serves as the president's personal police force. This is why we need to abolish ICE. We need the resignation of the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, since he has demonstrated his moral turpitude and lack of human values to lead the Department of Justice. It is time that our elected officials at all levels return to a constitutional order. Let all of them be reminded that there are moral laws in this universe which lead even the most powerful must bow to. Let them be reminded that the people remember the injustice and suffering of their policies and their neglect. And let us remind ourselves that we are the moral resistance and we are also the moral restoration of this country. And we shall take the poor, the oppressed, the sick, the marginalized, the refugee, and the silenced, and raise them to a place of love and justice and dignity, because we are such a nation. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Michael Waters. I teach English as a second language here in Franklin. And it's amazing when students come into your classroom sunburned from crossing the desert.
Can't hear you.
It's amazing when students come into your classroom sunburned from crossing the desert. They are fleeing unimaginable violence. A group of 3 students came from Acapulco, Guerrero. You may have heard that 43 student teachers were assassinated in this little town. It was so the parents refused to send their children to school. The teachers wouldn't go back to school. There was no school. On top of that, the children's mother had a small shop. And these narco traffickers, they came and said, "You're going to give us $1,000 on Friday or we're going to kill your children." She did a smart thing. She ran away. She came to Franklin with her children. But she did a smarter thing before she left. She went to the police and got a protective order. And that document she had with her, which I was able to translate into English, staple my Spanish teacher's license onto it, and send her to court. And the entire family was granted asylum. And Grandma brought some wonderful tamales to school. So another time, a child from Honduras arrived unaccompanied at the border. His mother had spent all of her money to bring this child out of a terrible situation in Honduras. And she also had a document. It was the child's father was a sexual deviant that had been abusing the boy. Once again, I was able to translate the court document into English and send it to the immigration court. So the United States of America versus Paco, age 5, came up. Mom couldn't afford a lawyer, but she had that document, and she was granted an asylum with her child. Just recently in April, the parent of my students was driving in Tennessee. Now, he had a driver's license in 2007, but the law changed and he wasn't able to renew it. Well, the 4 lanes went into 2 lanes and a construction site, and he didn't go back over. So when the sheriff saw him on the wrong side of the road, charged him with reckless driving to endanger, which is a felony. Now, I've known this man for 12 years, and there's nothing dangerous about him. He would not intentionally harm anyone, but he was locked up and in jail. And I went to court, interpreted for him, and we got the charge reduced to a misdemeanor, but they wouldn't let him out of jail. They held him for ICE. And these 3 children were very upset. They needed their daddy back, and I told them I was going to do the best I could. So I went to court in Tennessee, and we got it reduced to a misdemeanor. But ICE took him to Louisiana, to a horrible place in northern Louisiana, which is 50 miles from everywhere, and it's extremely hot. But luckily for my friend, his boss, the construction chief that he works for, agreed to pay the bond, which was $12,000. Well, first, it was $8,000. Then he politely asked the judge if he would be granted a limited driving privilege, and she screamed at him and said, "Oh, what impertinence! $12,500 is the bond." But I took it to Charlotte, to immigration court, and I went to ICE, and there was a group of Spanish-speaking people there, and I asked, "¿Cuánto tiempo estaba esperando? How long have you been waiting?" And they said, 2.5 hours. I was wearing a jacket and tie, carrying a briefcase with $12,500, and I was out of there in 20 minutes. Now that stinks. I mean, that's the way ICE works. They are hideous. They are horrible. And once the bond was paid, I had my brother's friend in Louisiana go to meet him as he got out of jail. I was told by the lawyer it'd be 2 hours. So at 12:30, our friend Bob was there waiting to take Joaquin to the bus station. They wouldn't let him out until 5 o'clock that day. And 67-year-old Bob wasn't allowed to go into the waiting room. He was forced to stand in the hot sun all that time. For no reason, just to be nasty. So, when he got out at 5 o'clock, he'd missed his bus. And got on the bus the next day. There's only one bus out of Alexandria, Louisiana. But after 24 hours on Greyhound, he was back in Franklin. And his lawyer says because he has paid all of his taxes for the last 12 years, and because he has excellent letters of recommendation from his pastor, from his boss, and the lawyer has fond hopes that he will be granted permanent residency. But it is a battle every time, and it's the luck of the draw. If you look at the immigration judges, some of them reject 100% of the asylum petitions before them. There are 12 of these immigration judges that have never granted anyone asylum. And they're employees of the Justice Department. They're not federal judges. They're administrative judges. And they have a lot of power over people's lives. And some of them that I've come into contact with have been the most arrogant, awful people. My poor friend was standing at the bar and she said, "Did anyone ever tell you you could come into the United States of America? Did anyone ever give you a visa?" And she went on like this for a while. The good thing was he didn't understand a word she was saying. She was very upset at me for being in her courtroom and not being a lawyer, until I said that I represented the interests of the respondent's minor child and I was a teacher from North Carolina. And she calmed down. But then she deported him, and then he was back in a couple of weeks. I said, "How did you do it?" So I went to Lowe's, I bought a ladder. So you can spend $25 billion on a wall, but you can go to Lowe's and buy a ladder. Thank you.
I've got some housekeeping. Has anybody tried the doors across the way for the restroom? Is that open? If that's not open, the town hall should be open 1 block that way on this side. Let's see, what else have we got? Okay, so our petition says, "We demand that the Trump administration caging children, caging children and jailing their families immediately, and reunite children in immigration custody with their families at once. So if you haven't signed that, please go do so. We've also got the postcards going to our two senators and Congressman Meadows. And let's see what else we've got. I want to pass around a couple of collection buckets. The Bacon County, or the Centro Comunitario of Bacon County, we have a immigrant legal fund, which we've already collected money in the past to be used by local folks who need it. And if you feel so inspired, please drop whatever you can in there, and we will put it in that fund to be used for local people. Please, could you hand this to the folks in the back? We'll just. All right. Sorry to pick on you, but if we want to start here and pass it around. Okay. Thank you. Now, is there anybody from the community who has some insight or some things they'd like to share about this? This is a community event. This is not the authorities telling you what to believe. This is we the people at its finest right here today. Is there anybody who'd like to share their experiences or their insights about this particular issue? Come on up, come on up, come on up. All right, we've got Selma Sparks. First up, she's been a political journalist and activist for many decades, and we're lucky to have her.
Okay. See, I'm called the troublemaker. And, maybe they're right. But I just want to say a few things. In the history of this country, this is not new. When they brought the slaves over, they took their children away from them. They sold them away from them. They never saw their children again. This is what they started with. They did the same thing with the Native Americans. They took the children away and put them in schools so they would learn English, forget their own history so they would not know who they were. Then, of course, the Japanese, they put them in internment camps. So this is something that has gone on. This is part of the history of this great country. We now have a leader who's prepared to carry this on and who is doing it very well. And this is a horror. I'm a mother, I have 2 children, I have grandchildren, and I think I would be going out of my mind if somebody took one of them away from me, even though they're grown, if they were taken away. So you can just imagine if you have children, if your child gets away from you in a store and you don't find it for about 15 or 20 minutes, imagine the panic you feel. Just think about what these parents are feeling. And the children, the babies, who have no one to hold them, because of course they're told the people who are there are not to touch them. So they have no one to hold them, to make them feel secure, to make them feel at least a little comfortable. And these are from babies on up. And these are babies who can't talk, 6 months old, 18 months old. This is a horror that I never thought I'd see, and then I shouldn't be surprised with the creature we have in the White House, and I say that and I don't care if they put, I'm already on all the lists that they can have anyway, so it doesn't matter. But we've got a demented, evil racist in the White House, because all of this is based on racism. Because if these children were white, this would not be happening, but they are brown, and it's happening. I'm very glad to see the people out here in Franklin. I'm very pleased because it says that you understand that you know about that. And all the people who don't stand up against it, as Martin Luther King said, if you don't stand up and speak out against something bad, you're supporting it. You're making it stronger. So let's understand, we all have to come out against it and let it be known throughout the country that we in Franklin recognize that this is a horror, this is inhumane, This should not be happening. And when they talk about making America great again, I'm sorry. But Trump means making America white again, getting rid of all the people of color because they're all scared. I don't know why, but they are, and this is what they're doing. And these children, they're not criminals. How can an 18-month-old child be a criminal? How can a 6-month-old child be a criminal? But they're saying, oh yes, you're going to bring in criminals and all kinds of things. Come on, these people are not criminals. They're running from governments that this country supported and put in place. The governments that are killing these people, that are treating these people to horrors. Their women, the children, and all of them. And we need to support them. We need to give them asylum. We gave everybody else asylum when the people came from Europe. And let's remember, they came over here. They were allowed in. Nobody told them you can't come in. Nobody called them criminals. Come on. Let's be realistic and say, hey, we know what's at the base of this and we won't tolerate it because all of these people are equal. And if you're a Christian, come on. You keep saying, hey, love is the thing that Jesus taught. He didn't teach hate. Whatever your religion is, that doesn't come through. Hate doesn't come through. So we have to understand, these people need our love. They need our support. They need our action. So send those cards to your legislators. Let them know that we're saying either you do this or we don't let you get into office again. Let's let them know we have the power.
Thank you, Thelma. A quick note. In the 1980s, just for a quick history note, for folks who may not have been aware of it, but unfortunately our government was supporting death squads in Central America. In fact, training the leaders of the death squads at Fort Benning in Georgia. And many people were arrested in civil disobedience against that. But we were training, arming, supporting. It goes back to the origin of the CIA, actually, with the Dulles brothers and the United Fruit Company. So American history is really fascinating. I love studying history, and I've taught history. But American history is really interesting when you get into the primary sources of people who've been there, who've seen it, who've done it. The rest of the world knows our history better than we know our history. And we need to really look at what our government has done to other people, and so that I remember a administration or two ago saying, well, why did they attack us? Well, they hate America. And I'm thinking, or they hate our freedoms. No, they don't hate our freedoms. We have wonderful freedoms, which, we've seen this attack on the press. We've seen President calling the press that the enemy. This is horrendous. So, but please look into the things that have happened, as Selma suggested. All right, up next we have Susan Brewer from Raven Gap. Come on, Susan.
Franklin, hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Are we happy to be here?
Yes.
Yes. We have the freedom to be here, right?
Yes.
So I want to start with the difference between limiting our speech, which is what's happening as a result of the moves and the policies of the Trump administration, and actually taking the trouble to speak freely, right? I have an article that I write every month for a local magazine. It's on an artist. And this month, I found, much to my, not surprise, but all of a sudden I was writing about a little girl who was standing in a dark night wearing a red hoodie and black tights, crying in terror. There's a picture of this child. And then I was listening to the sounds of the children on the news saying, "Mommy, Mommy, Daddy, Daddy, And all of a sudden I thought, this article has I've got to put this in that. And so am I taking a liberty? Am I taking a risk? Yes. But I can't not do it. This is not a political forum. This is an art forum that I'm writing about. But it is going to become one of the freedoms that I take now while we still can, right? Because that's where this is headed. And it will happen like sliding, a slow slide. And it's already happening now. The thing that I shared with somebody when I was protesting over there, that she said, you need to share that, was that when we went to the Iraq War, we created a vacuum. And in that vacuum, ISIS sprung. The worst possible nightmare. And right now, the reason, which is what all the Republicans ask, why are these people coming to our country? Why are they separating their children? They see the risk. They see it as an invasion of their property, right? They're trespassing on American property. And what they're losing sight of is their fleeing terror.
America created.
Well, I mean, so let's just say that as we create this vacuum of desensitizing ourselves to the pain of these children and to the pain of each other, we are creating a political vacuum that's right down our street. And if we don't address the concerns of the people who are terrorized, these people aren't a little scared. Go read the stories, do the searches, get off your normal websites and ask some questions and start to nose around this stuff, and it's terrifying what's happening right down the street. And we're all about America, right? We're all about our la-di-da. But in fact, we have the freedom to care about others too. And that if we don't do that, we may trigger something unintended, like a Central American ISIS. And then I'm going to conclude with this poster. Imagine. Imagination is like missing. We're very worried and it's hard to be imaginative. Imagine a healthy spirit of doubt in politics. One, combined with a tough dad, Republicans, and a caring mom, the Democrats. Imagine them working together as a family. So, thank you. And I'm glad everybody's here.
Thank you, Susan. Let's see. You brought up a whole lot of stuff, and a couple things fired a few brain cells of mine I wanted to share. One of them is the freedom of speech. Okay, if you also, come on up here if you want to speak. So I'm just going to fill in until somebody else comes up here. So come on up here so you don't have to listen to me anymore. All right. So freedom of speech. What's interesting is this is enshrined in our First Amendment to the Constitution, and yet it only goes so far. I am fortunate. I am privileged because I started teaching in this state, in this county, back in 2006. In 2013, our state legislators in Raleigh took away due process rights for teachers. What does that mean? That means that for folks who started in 2013 or later, and they've been in the district for 3 or 5 years and doing a fine job, they can be fired for no reason at all. So all teachers starting since 2013 can be fired, can be let go without being given a reason. So you might not see a lot of teachers out on the front lines because they need the paycheck too. So freedoms without some good economics, or freedom within economics, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think we'll let these folks go past with their motorcycles. Marie. Oh, sorry. Pat. You. I apologize. Would you like to speak, Pat Washington? You look like something's on your mind. No.
I have a poem.
You have a poem. Come share your poem. What is your name?
Helen O'Brien.
Helen O'Brien. Thank you.
I am a teacher, and I hope this won't get me fired, but I'm willing to take the risk. As many of you, this is a time of deep despair, a time when we don't really know what to think and what to feel. So this poem by Wendell Berry has given me some sustenance this week. Hold on, I lost it. So The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair grows in me and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's life may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in the beauty of the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting for their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and I am free. Do not forget about the day-blind stars.
All right. Thank you, Helen. All right. Pat, would you like to say some things? Please do. No, I apologize.
It's nothing like being put on the spot. So I just came out to support. I'm just so happy to be here, and I'm just so happy to see everyone out with their support. It's just such a wonderful feeling, to have everyone out. And I just want to thank the crowd for being here.
Okay, originally, come on up, sir. We were, some folks thought we were going on a march, and I hadn't heard that. Although I'd heard that, I didn't know about that, and it's a bit hot today, so I think we might forego the march. But if you can find some shade, that's even better. And please support our local downtown Franklin. Shop local when you can; it makes a difference. All right, sir. And who are you? Gary Mitchell. Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm just speaking as a Vietnam veteran. And I think one thing as a veteran, you're always proud of your country. I don't know that I am anymore. And that, for somebody like me to say that, that's pretty rare. But as a Vietnam veteran, one of the things that's made me the proudest is when I see the Vietnam families that escaped to the U.S. and have built a future in the U.S. and the doctors and the lawyers and the nail salon people. That's what our freedoms are about, and we are abusing our freedoms right now, or the people coming here for a safe life. We are abusing their freedoms.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for your words and your service. All right, is there anybody else who would like to speak? This is your time. This is our community forum today right here to hear about your concerns, your thoughts, and your ideas. One of my hats is, come on up and speak if you'd like to speak. Please come on up. All right, thank you, sir. And one of the hats that I do wear is I'm on the board of the Centro Comunitario, and if you want to have any ideas to make our community better, please let us know. We've got the sheets on the clipboard.
Alex is in back.
All right, and you are?
My name is Alex.
Alex, thank you, sir.
I feel this way. On most applications, I'm faced with one of the things, and usually it's your race, your origin, and I feel this way, it's the human race that we need to deal with. The man that we have right now in office is a liar. He's a fraud. He's a thief. He has never donated to an organization or anything to help another person. The worst part about it is that Hillary said there are deplorables. She was wrong. There is many more deplorables than 57. These people do not want to see a man for what he is. They're stuck with it. And if we don't sit down and vote, if we don't get ourselves out and vote and try and change this thing, we will have many more Trump. Trump will continue on. And the situation, if what he's doing now with the Supreme Court, we're going to have Trump for many years to come. There are laws in this country, and when somebody says follow the laws, no. Resist the laws. Stand up to them when they're not right, when they're not honest, and they're not perfect. Because laws are what's in your heart, what's in your mind. It's not in the Bible. It's you who have to decide what a law is. And I feel this way. Our only hope, when you have a young child, and I'm not talking about a 15-year-old, I'm talking about a year and a half old when they first begin to understand what's around them. Teach them to question. Do not accept all the lies your mothers tell you, your fathers tell you, and your government tells you. Question. And when you do that, you will grow up to be a person that can vote for the right person to make your decisions correctly. And that's the only hope we have in our children. We have no other way to get out of this. We are too old. We're all going to go soon. But what's left for us now is our children. We've got to work with our children. And when you see an abuse or something happen to a child, stand up and say something about it. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, if you're not already aware, there's a group in Franklin called Forward Franklin. And it's on Facebook, but they also do email if you're not on Facebook. So if you're interested in that, come up and speak to one of us in a bit. Also, yes, thank you again, Alex. We've got, if you're not registered to vote at your current location, we've got registration packets up there. Please register to vote right now. Do not forget. All right, would you like to speak?
Yes.
All right, what is your name?
It's Jean Lee.
How do you spell that?
It's J-E-A.
All right, thank you.
Mostly I just have a question. What's happening now in our country is horrible. You know, the border has been porous for decades and decades, and you know, we took away most of that land from the Mexicans to start with. But the Mexicans, the Hondurans, the Guatemalans, they're coming to this country because their country's so unsafe. It is unsafe because of the drug cartels. Drug cartels run the countries, almost all of Mexico. So many states now are run by the cartels that the State Department has put out travel warnings to not go to those states. But my question is, why can't the United States, you know, with all its resources and all its power, why can't it help these people to stay in their countries where they would rather be? They don't want to come here, but they're forced to come here. So, does anybody know if anybody's addressing this? Like, what can be done? Because those drugs are coming, they're going to keep coming, and they're coming to the United States. The United States sells weapons to the drug cartels, and they bring the drugs to us. So, I don't know why we can't do something. We're involved in all these other countries. I don't know why we can't do something to help South and Central America. You know, help these people stay in their lands.
Thank you. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that foreign aid has been cut in this new administration, and diplomacy. The State Department has been gutted in favor of military and direct tweet diplomacy. Hopefully, does anybody aware, is the Peace Corps still a thing? Is that still active? Is there still funds going for the Peace Corps, I hope? Or AmeriCorps? But also, we do have a lot of folks, even in Macon County, whose churches are doing good works in countries all over the world. So that is a source of hope. So get with your communities, whatever communities you have, and do whatever it is you can. All right, anybody else want to come up and speak? We have somebody. Good. Thank you. Come on up. All right. What is your name?
Good afternoon. I'm Margaret Uhar. I just wanted to share a simple portion of Matthew that I know almost everybody here is very familiar with, and it just seems like things are settling down a little bit this afternoon, and it seems like a good note to reflect upon as we leave this place. Matthew 25:35. I was hungry and you fed me, thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you received me in your homes, naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you took care of me, in prison and you visited me. The righteous will then answer him, When, Lord, did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you a drink? When did we ever see you a stranger and welcome you in our homes, or naked and clothe you? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you? The king will reply, I tell you, whenever you did this for one of the least important of these brothers of mine, you did it for me.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Ann Woodford from Andrews. When I drove over here, when I didn't feel well and everything, but this has really hurt my heart. I can't stop crying every time I watch the television and see these babies. So I want to say thanks to all the people that have come out here this evening. And I would just like people to clap if you belong to a church. I want to see how many people are here from churches. Not enough, don't you think? I just thought of something that I can do. Now, I'm going to write to the African American churches and ask them why they're not out here supporting this. They should be. I don't know if there was anything going on in Silva or any of the other communities, but they should be here supporting this. And then I want to say that I am one who has faith, and my faith is Christian faith. And there is a scripture that I may forget, because sometimes when you're standing up here like this, you can't think of everything, but there's one that says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Say it with me, those who know it. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Preparest the table before me in the presence of my enemies. Tell me, thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. If you really believe, you will dwell in the house of the Lord. If you're not a believer, think of how your cup is running over. This country, our cups are running over. I don't see any raggedy people, any hungry people out here today. So I thank you all for coming here. And I just hope that we can all work together and work together even better than we are today. Bless all of you, and thank you so much.
Okay, if there's somebody else who would like to speak, please come up. As we're waiting for that, I just want to ask everybody, the community that we are experiencing right now, we had well over 100 people here. And we have to be realistic. My understanding is almost 70% of the people who voted in the presidential election, I believe it was 69 point something, voted for Donald Trump. 69.4%, thank you, in Macon County. So when we get together, we are having fellowship. We are with a lot of people of good heart, which counts for a whole lot in this world. And we need to take this energy and bring it back to our families, to our little communities, to our church, to our work, to our neighbors, and have those hard conversations, not arguments, because nobody wins in an argument. Everybody just shuts down and goes to their corner. But we need to be able to ask and listen. It's that listening that we've too often forgot how to do. It's like, oh, well, he's from that group or this party or this or that, or, he's got this bumper sticker or whatever. But we can't get anywhere like that. That isn't the way forward. I firmly believe in Dr. King's vision of love is the only way. Okay? Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can. So these are the things, as much as we are justified in our anger of what's happening to our neighbors and our nation, you have to dig deep for that love. Yes, un mundo, una familia, one world, one family. That is us, the human race. And we need to start treating each other as such, as we are all one family. And if there's nobody else who would like to speak, last call, okay, come on up.
Pat Washington again, and all of a sudden I collected a couple of thoughts. And this is just like a little chant or a little cheer, and I want you to join me. And it says, I am amazing, and it's because we all can make a difference, and I'm glad to know that I as one person can make a difference. But it goes like this: I am amazing, you are amazing, we are amazing. Yes, we are. So if you'll help me, and then at the end of it, I would like to shout out and say, Latinos are amazing. So let's try it, and we'll do it 2 or 3 times, and then we go, Latinos are amazing. Okay, here we go. I am amazing. You are amazing. We are amazing. Yes, we are. I am amazing. You are amazing. We are amazing. Yes, we are. Last time. I am amazing. You are amazing. We are amazing. Yes, we are. And Latinos are amazing. One last thing.
Listening to all of these people speaking, seeing all of you, of course I'm almost in tears, but I'll try not to. But this is what we need. This is what it's all about. Understanding we are all members of the human race. That's one race. We're all people. And we all have to be treated like people. And we have to insist that our government treats all like people. Because believe it or not, when he finishes with what he's doing now, he's coming to more of us. And we've got to stop it. Because if we don't, it's going to go on. I'm not going to be around. I mean, I'm at an age, I'm not going to stay around. I don't have to worry about it because I won't be here. But I've got grandchildren and great-grandchildren who are going to be here. And I want them to be in a world where they can walk down the street and feel safe, feel sound, and not feel hate. Love is the only thing that cures it. And it's hard to stop and believe. And I had a hard time too. Look, let's face it. I'm not imperfect. Believe me, I can be very, I have my little problems too. But the one thing I'm so grateful, I was never taught to hate. I was never taught to hate. So you have to be taught. You're not born hating. So we all have to take the love that we feel and spread it around. Talk to your neighbors. Don't have to argue with them. Just talk to them and show love and show caring. And who knows? There might be a response. If one person responds, hey, that's one more person. So we go around, and there's no point in hating Trump. Believe me, there isn't. Because he's just another human being, very, very imperfect. I mean, very, we understand that. And I think he's mentally ill, so he should have my sympathy. Well, I haven't reached that point yet. But I'm saying that we all have to go away from this knowing that we were here with brothers and sisters who believe that all people have a right to live, and we are all members of the same race, the human race. Take it back with you and give it to everybody you meet, always with love.
All right, I'm going to wrap up. Anybody else, now is the time to come forward. If you are interested, we've got quite a few members here of the Jackson County NAACP, which is oddly mostly white folks, because that's who's mostly in the mountains. It's true with the other Haywood County, Yancey Mitchell, etc. So, but what we're doing as an organization is basically what's good for poor black folks is good for everybody. So if we help poor black folks and poor Hispanic folks, everybody. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not, well, I only get something if something's taken away from somebody else. No, we all win when we're all doing better. All right, please.
Hi, I'm Avram Friedman. I'm with the NAACP in Jackson County, and in the Canary Coalition. And I just want to take note of the fact that there were a few people, and may still be a few people here, who disagree with the message of this gathering. And it probably took some courage for them to come and stand here with signs. But what they found was an acceptance, and they found safety and security in this crowd. And I think we should all be proud of that, because that is what America is about. Freedom of speech, regardless of what your perspective is. And I want you for a minute to imagine if the situation had been reversed, where this was an anti-immigration rally and a few people who agreed with us came there, if they would feel that same sense of security and safety. And so I just want us to congratulate ourselves on being true Democrats with a small d, and we are the people who are making America great again. And I think that the people who came here found that safety and security, and that had to make an impression on them, even if it was on a subliminal level, that they are safe and secure among the crowd who disagrees with them. And let's congratulate ourselves for that.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming out. If you haven't checked out and voted, registered to vote, and petitions and all that, or want to speak to different people, please come see us. Thank you, and enjoy your weekend, and enjoy the 4th of July responsibly, and love everybody you can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.